Liberia Community Radio, and they're here to talk about community radio sustainable acts. And we move across the table and speak with them. We started with. Yeah, go ahead.
Good morning, Olive, and let me say warm greetings to your dear listeners. My name is Varney and I work with the Association of Liberia Community Radio as head of secretariat.
Thank you.
Good morning, thank you. My name is Hector Mulbah. I'm the president of ALICOR.
Okay, so what is this group about?
Okay, ALICOR is the umbrella organization of community radio stations in Liberia across the country, and this group was formed or established in May in 2005. And then the objective is to advocate for community radio stations, community radio journalists, for technical support, capacity building, and in different areas.
Nice one. Let's hit the ground rolling. ALICO tomorrow is expected to present some legislation to the 54 legislature. Talk us through, Valin, what is in there for ALICO and what are we talking about?
So basically, I will call the president that respect.
Okay.
We will lay the basis, and then we will move on with more of the discussion.
Mr.
The
President.
president will lay the
Thank you.
basis.
So it's a bill that talks about the ownership, management, licensing, and operations of community radio station. This sector is a viable and vital sector for this country. Community radio has contributed immensely to where Liberia is in terms of peace, but it's been governed outside of law, of legislation. So as part of the usage media activity on Internews, this was part of our one of our activities to ensure that we have a law that speaks to the governance and operations of community radio station. And so we started this effort with Internews last year through a lot of major stakeholder engagements from Buchanan to Monrovia to Ganta and then to Ganta again, and we end in Monrovia. And so tomorrow, like you said, is going to be the day for the presentation of this bill to the National Legislature, which seeks to ensure how independent the sector operates.
I want you to give us specifically some of the details in the draft bill that you carried to the legislature. I heard you talk about governance, but you have a leadership. Is it ungovernable? Tell us some of the letters in the bill that you wishing to achieve.
Okay, so like I said, you talk about ownership, you talk about management, you talk about licensing, you talk about operations, and then going into the technical details, you're talking about the objective, and for ownership, you want to talk about how the community takes ownership of the sector or of individual community radio station. You want to talk about licensing. LTA is the entity responsible to license community radio station. You want to talk about sustainability. So there are a lot of issues that encompass this bill.
Okay, Mr. President, veteran broadcaster Hector Mulbah. Let me come to Varney. Mr. Dix, laws are meant to impact people positively. How does the law impact our community radio station and the media landscape in general?
So to take you from what His Excellency has actually.
His Excellency?
Yeah, the president of
Chief, quiet.
To take you from what the president has said, basically ownership, management, licensing, operation. The sector has been without a law providing governance. The sector has been without a law to ensure that community radios don't go down the drain. So one of the objectives of the bill is to protect and promote the right of community radio stations to ensure that citizens have access to community radios. So the first thing is that you want to know under ownership, what constitutes a radio being considered a community radio? So the bill gives a definition that to be considered a community radio station, you have to be owned by the community, operating in a community, the community has to have a stake in the operation of the community. So if you were to read through the bill, you will see a host of issues ranging from governance to ensure that you cannot have a community radio station in, for example, in Margibi County. Then you have people from Monrovia who are the ones running the community radio station. The law is calling, among other things, to ensure that it is the residents in the host community of that radio station that will ensure that they are owning the radio station. The law is also seeking to ensure that you don't have people with political intentions having to establish radio stations in the community. For example, there are many people who may think that a community radio station is just any radio station that operates in a county, but that is not what constitutes a community radio station. A commercial radio station could be operating in a county. So to qualify as a community radio station, this bill, when it shall be enacted into law, it specifies a host of issues that says this is what the person, this station has to meet in order to be considered a community radio station. And under sustainability, like the president issued there, community radio stations over the years have been faced with the issue of going down the drain due to lack of financial support. So the bill is also seeking to ensure that we have the national legislature allocating 1% of the national budget towards the community radio sector. And that money will be used to ensure the sustainability, the survival of community radio stations. Also in the draft bill, you have a portion, a section or provision within that bill also that talks about who can own a community radio station. You have a section that talks about it's intending to ensure that you don't have interference in the work of community radio stations. We've had instances where in some counties, local county authorities have been melting into the operations of community radio station. This is because in the absence of law, people do whatsoever they would like to do. But when you have a law that sets standards by which the sector is supposed to be governed, then people know what they're supposed to be doing and what they cannot do. The law clearly states that it is the regulating authorities like the LTA, the Ministry of Information, that carries out the issue of regulating the community radio sector. So one superintendent in a county cannot wake up and decides the fate of a community radio station.
Which is the case now?
We have had instances of such in some of the counties.
What does the law say about politicians owning community radios?
So the law also has a provision that talks about community radio station cannot be having any political alliance. You cannot have any association with a political party. So for instance, if the Speaker of the House or a member of the legislature decides to establish a community radio station, that station will have to conform to the law, the bill that we have now when it shall be enacted into law. It means that right has to be relinquished to the community. It has to be for the community, run by the community, operated by folks who are residing within the community.
Mr. President, I'd like to take you on this one. The media, far too long, has been criticized by many to say, well, the people who are running most of these radio stations, especially at the level of the rural, part of our country, many of them don't have the capacity, to run the radio stations. What does the law say about capacity for people who sit on the radio? Oh, I mean, in terms of at the level of manager, editor, news director, is it open to anybody just run in and become whoever you want to become?
I mean, this bill says a minimum of high school graduate
can be anybody.
Can be a station manager. Now you see, community radio station is a unique station. You don't want to attach any kind of high standard that would deprive again experience.
But you also have to have standard.
Experience. That's what I'm saying. High criteria that would deny certain people who are qualified in certain area. And I was coming to that. I mean, someone has worked with a community radio station for 5, 7, 8 years. He's experienced. He's gone through all of the rudiments. He's a high school graduate, so obviously he can qualify.
Okay.
That's the bare minimum, of anyone who becomes station manager of a community radio station.
So if I get you right, it's about experience and not just about educational qualification.
What we're saying, we don't want to give the opportunity where You say, look, you must be a college graduate, you must be a master's degree holder, and then you don't have such person in that community, reside in that community. But other people in that community have been serving this radio station or those radio stations. They've gone through all of the rudiments, they have the experience, but then somebody who's not in tune with that community because he has a master's degree or a PhD, he comes and takes over the station when he's not connected to the people, and the radio station is about the people.
And just to add up to that, you can't use someone's educational status to prohibit them from having access to exercising their right to freedom of expression and freedom of information. Liberia has signed on to a number of protocols and conventions that guarantees people's right to actually express themselves freely in our democratic space.
Yeah,
So,
but
I'm coming to a point, Varney. Just a minute.
Okay,
Just a minute. So, within this bill, we have a provision there that speaks to your concern, which is professional broadcast. Section 3.7 talks about professional broadcast. It outlines the issue that it says community radio stations shall ensure its programs content is free of anything offensive and distasteful to the public. That's the section. Explicit or implicit attacks on religious, social, and cultural values and promote communal disharmony and discontent. You cannot also have people on the radio who will be involved into attacking people's personality. That's one. Also, there is a section there that talks about the community radio station providing routine training opportunities for those who are aspiring to become journalists in the country. It is also embedded within this bill. So the bill does not only seek to protect the community radio stations, it does not only seek to ensure that the community radio stations survive, but it also looks at the issue of community radio stations being in compliance with even legal standing. To ensure that you establish a radio station, the bill seeks to ensure that you meet all of the requirements.
Contents that are relevant to the needs of the people.
From the business registry to that of MICA to the LTA. This is to ensure that community radio stations are in good standing with the law, and also it helps with government resource mobilization as well. So it captures a number of things which we cannot go into due to the time factor. But your concern is addressed under professional broadcast.
Certainly. I'm also concerned, Mr. President, when we talk about professional broadcast, right? Because fundamentally, it's tied to peace and progress. Because the kind of information you project, and people here, they tend to run with it. I mean, the Rwanda genocide, we know really Kigali is another clear history example. But my concern is, does the law, carry a teeth to bite, assuming somebody is coming in conflict in terms of inciting people during these elections and saying things that has the potential, to plunge our people into the streets and cause chaos. What does the law say about going after these people?
Section 7 of the bill talks about revocation of permit. So that section looks at if a community radio station is operating in contravention to establish laws of the land. The LTA and the Ministry of Information have got the right to revoke the permit or license of that community radio station. But also the law provides that the community radio station has to have their day in court. So you have to have due diligence to ensure that whatsoever that may be arising from the concerns of the regulating arm, that community radio station will have time also to go and respond to some of those issues. So you have revocation of permit, and under revocation of permit is where we look at when the content of a community radio station, or they are going contrary to what the LTA and the Ministry of Information has set in terms of your content and other operating procedures.
Fast forward, before reaching to the due process argument, ALICOR as an association, what is a first-hand approach to address some of these things?
That's why we're in constant communication. The first-hand approach is being in constant communication with our members, soliciting training opportunities. To go back to the question that brought us to these professional issues, the issue of community registration has not really been about professional capacities. It's about sustainability, because you and I know that most of the you want to say the greatest broadcasters right now, the great broadcasters right now in Monroe, I mean, most of those guys are from community radio stations. So the issue of capacity, because, I mean, community radio stations members have always had the opportunity for training. There have been enormous training opportunities. And so that is one of the things that ALICOR has always been involved with. I mean, solicit training opportunities, because you don't want your colleagues or your members breaching the law, or I mean, going against the ethics before you come to want to bite them for your choice of word. So you always try to prevent biting, and the way to prevent biting is to ensure that they get the kind of training that will make them to exercise the professionalism and go according to the journalism ethics and the PUL code, and those stations have their own regulations, they have their own laws or ethical values that govern them, because like I said, there are too many trainings that have made community radio station operators very knowledgeable in the sector.
So, Varney, just to hit a little bit on the core of our presence in the studio this morning, we have come primarily to raise some level of awareness about this bill. We have come primarily to call on the attention of our media colleagues. We have come to call on the attention of CSOs. We have come also, very importantly, to call on members of the legislature.
I guess we are achieving that.
Yeah, so we just want to touch on that mainly, that like yesterday we were on the grounds of the Capitol building, and we were opportune to have met with the chairperson on information and broadcasting, Honorable Iva Jones. We also met with some other lawmakers, Madam Briggs Mensah from Bon County, Madam Ellie Atto. These are people who have expressed their support to this bill. So we want to also use this opportunity to call on other lawmakers. The community radio station is like a lifeblood of the host community. This is the institution that creates the awareness when the communities are confronted with challenges from issues of development and many other issues. This is the single most important tool that raises that awareness for the people. So we are looking forward to our lawmakers supporting this bill. We're looking forward to members in the media as well supporting this bill. The bill is available. We can also share a copy electronically to you. We also have the hard copies of the bill. So the key reasons for which we are appearing on this platform is to raise the awareness and to solicit the support of our lawmakers. We believe in their wisdom, and we know that this will meet their acquiescence. So this is one key reason why we have come this morning.
Representative Alva John receives, hopefully, your bill or tomorrow at the grounds of the Capitol. He's just one among many lawmakers at the level of the House of Representatives to push the bill through in order to have, some of the face we're talking about here. What is the conversations in the legislature, the corridor of the legislature in terms of the Senate in the House? Because when you leave the House, obviously you need like-minded senators to roll you through. So where are we in terms of these different conversations?
We also have the chair on broadcasting of the Senate, Senator James who also been very receptive of this bill. He's attended most of our engagements. He has expressed willingness and support. We've talked to my colleague Varney has talked to Senator Lawrence. We've talked to several other senators. We've talked to not just the senators, but some of their office staffers, their chief office staffers, who have some level of close relationship with them to help us push. Because sometimes these big people are always engaged. So once you have the people close to them, they always have.
What are they saying? What are you hearing?
They are in support.
All of the people with whom we've spoken.
There's a spread support. Overwhelming support.
Can we say that when this bill hit the plenary floor, it's going to be rushed through the legislature?
And this is our earnest expectation that when it shall have been introduced on the floor, that members of that august body will see the expediencies surrounding.
I want to be careful with the word rush through.
Not rush through. Yes, like he's saying.
Yes.
Yeah. Because they will have their
time.
But
you want to be careful with the bill is good.
Yeah, no.
You talk one of the good things. Just you say you got something hot in there. No, they will take our time.
No, this is to say these we don't want to express the thought that they just hastily passed law. We know that they also going to be doing their own due diligence on the floor. They're going to be discussing this bill. We're going to. There is a possibility some of the things that we have infused in this bill may not end up being in the bill by the time it becomes a law. There is a possibility also they could also be making some suggestions as well when we are invited to have some response regarding this bill. So we know that they're going to have a time to go through this, and we are doing everything we can with the support of Internews, with the support of the lawyers that Internews have hired, because this bill is a reflection of community radio stations. It's a reflection of the legal team that was also hired. It's a reflection of the residents in the host communities. So this is not something that the ALICOR leadership sat in a corner and just crafted. No, like the president indicated from the inception, a host of consultative meetings were held. Validations upon validations have also been carried out on this document. We had the most recent one in Kakata, Makidi County, where over 30 community radio station members were there and signed a joint communique supporting this bill. So this bill has the backing of the communities.
Apart from the community, does the bill do you have any backing from the president of Liberia, the Mother Union? Do you have backing? Talk us through about your relationship with the PEO in pushing, your bill at the level of the legislature, because PEO is very fundamental in all this.
Yeah, well, we PEO has been, PEO, it is. I mean, it's a very strong partner to us. The first and second consultations, PEO was part of it. We have the consultations at different level with different stakeholders. So you engage this set of stakeholder today, another time you engage with other stakeholder. PEO is quite a way. In fact, like I said, PEO was part of the formation of this bill. So PEO is quite a way.
And PEO is captured as well in this bill.
Yeah,
there is a provision where we are saying for the allocation of $1 million of the 1% rather of the budget to the community radio sector. The management of that fund, if when we should have had this passed, the management of that fund, we have PEO on that committee that will be managing said fund.
If I get you clear, are you asking for 13 or 1.1?
1%.
1%
budget.
On the national budget.
Yes.
Okay, so it depends the kind of envelope we have
at that time.
Mm-hmm. And the 1% will be determined.
Sure.
Many times we have institutions that push forward for budget support, and the government will say, well, we got competing priorities. What are your, conversations around outside of budgetary support? Where do we look for? Who do we run to help us sustain what we're trying to push?
I think if you talk about competing priorities, the sector is one of the competing. It's one of the major competing. Because this sector is a sector that has helped to sustain the peace of this country over time. All of our different transitional processes, this sector has played a pivotal role. So I know this is a competing priority. The government considers this sector as a very vital and viable sector. But outside of what we're pushing, that's why Internews and other media development partners and ALICOR will continue to conduct trainings, with our colleagues, with our member stations, giving them the skills, to have business plan, to think outside the box. This kind of big support you're seeking, just in case it doesn't materialize, you use the skills that you've been given over the years to sustain the station.
And Varney, just to add up, we are very confident. We are very certain. And like I said, we believe in the wisdom of our lawmakers. We know they know what is important. They know that the interest of the people is the foremost priority for which they were elected. And this sector is very vital when it comes to the interest of the people across the country. So we believe in their wisdom. We know we are not having like some kind of hesitant thought regarding this process, because we know the people that are at the legislature are people of wisdom who will do the right thing, and this is why we are seeking their support. This is why we are explaining the bill. We are providing copies of the bill to them so they can have their own peruse of this document. We want to have community radio surviving. We want to ensure that community radio station becomes what it is. For instance, in the bill where the President talk about the content. Community radio station, you can't be a community radio station in a county and then all of your broadcast content is just in English. So that's another key thing in the bill, where we are seeking to ensure that your broadcast content will be a reflection of the language within that place. We are seeking also in this bill to ensure that 60% of your news content is locally driven. It's not wherein station in Monrovia opens the line and you are relaying from morning to night. You are ensuring that that sense of belonging to the people is what is reflected on your station. So we want to go back to that issue where community radio station will actually reflect